happy holiday shopping season. I'm attorney Tony Bell with Superheroes at Law. Today we're turning our attention to the hardworking retail workers who are gearing up for Black Friday. It's a day famous for deals and discounts, but what about the legal rights of those on the front lines of retail? Black Friday isn't just a busy shopping day. It's also a critical time to discuss employment law as it relates to retail workers. From mandatory overtime to holiday pay and safety regulations, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get started. First, mandatory overtime. Many retail workers find themselves working longer hours during the Black Friday rush. While overtime is often a necessity, it's governed by laws ensuring a fair compensation. Under the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, for instance, employees are generally entitled to overtime pay at 1.5 times their regular rate for hours that are worked beyond their standard 40-hour work week. But what about holiday pay? Well, here's where it gets tricky. Surprisingly, there is no federal requirement for extra pay on holidays. It often depends on state laws or individual employer policies. So while some retail workers might receive holiday pay, others might not. Breaks are another crucial aspect. While federal law doesn't mandate specific breaks or meal periods, many states do. These laws ensure that workers get much needed rest during their hectic shifts. Retailers who fail to comply can face legal consequences. Now, let's talk safety. With the surge of customers with Black Friday shopping, keeping retail environments safe is more important than ever. Employers are legally required to provide a safe working environment. This means managing crowds effectively and ensuring emergency procedures are in place. The gig economy and temporary workers also play a big role during Black Friday. These workers also have rights, but they might differ from those of permanent employees. So it's important for all All right. So, hello everybody, and happy Saturday. And thanks for joining for everyone who joined, and also for everybody who's going to be seeing this afterwards. Uh, Thanks for joining us today. So today we're going to be talking about, since this is the holiday season, we're going to be discussing about employers, uh, what employers must do during the holidays and employee rights during the holidays. And this is really big because this is good for you if you're an employee. Also, if you are a small business owner, you need to know these types of things so that you can treat your employees uh, not only with respect, but legally. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And then we also have some questions that have come in. Also, if you have a question and you're watching this on one of the uh, many streams that we have going simultaneously right now, uh, feel free to type that in, and I and my team will do our best to make sure that your question is answered. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily on what we're talking about today. However, I'm starting off this session talking about employee rights during the holidays. And so also keep in mind that all of this is for informational purposes and educational purposes. Each situation may vary depending on the specifics of your individual situation. So please do not interpret anything that we discuss today as being legal uh, instruction to you. However, you can always check with a legal uh, an attorney after today's session if you have any specific questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So employee rights during the holiday season. During the holiday season, employees generally, for a lot of industries, are really overworked and stressed out a lot of times, depending on the industry that you're in. And, it's a really tough time for a lot of employees in a lot of different industries. And so a lot of times the stress of just getting the job done gets in the way of taking care of employees during the holiday season. And unfortunately, there are a lot of illegalities that occur during this time because of that. And so, again, I really want to encourage small business owners. I'm hoping that you're watching this and sticking with us today, as well as employees. And so let's talk about something that is always interesting: holiday pay. So, in the state of California and federally, there is no federal law that requires for employers to pay you holiday pay. If you work on a holiday, we just had Thanksgiving not too long ago. We have Hanukkah and Christmas coming up, and Kwanzaa and different holidays that are coming up. There is no requirement for your employer to pay you holiday pay. However, if there was something written into maybe your union contract or into your employment contract, then by all means, at that point, there would be a legal obligation because they had already agreed to do so. However, if they did not agree to already upon providing you the job or through a subsequent union contract, then they're not required to. Now, is it good for morale? Of course, but everybody just has to have a clear expectation. There is no legal requirement for that. So that is one thing that a lot of people wonder a lot of times. Well, goodness, I'm working on Christmas Eve. Aren't they going to pay me holiday pay? Don't they have to pay me? No, they don't have to unless they agreed to already. And so, if you want to know about the specifics of that, I would highly recommend going to your employment manual. Hopefully, your employer provided you an employment manual when you started. However, if they didn't, and there was no discussion of it prior and nothing in writing stating that they would give you those holidays, then there is no obligation for them to do so. If they give you holiday pay, then that's great. Now, speaking of uh, great things, are holiday bonuses. Same thing. The majority of employers don't provide holiday bonuses per se. However, there are some that do. And again, they're not required to. It's only if it's written into the employment contract or into a union uh, contract. So these things are not required of the employer, but they're great for morale and great for the employees. And I know a lot of small business owners, especially, will go out of their way to try to, you know, do a little something extra for their employees, even if it's not money. If times are really tough, they at least, sometimes they'll provide a little gift or something from their heart. But a lot of employers do their best, small business owners at least that I know, to try to be an extra uh, blessing in a way to their employees during the holiday period. So again, as far as for the legality of it, it's not required unless it's in the contract. So let's talk about another topic when it comes to employee rights, and the holidays, and employers, and something that always comes up, and there's always potential legal ramifications, and it's about holiday time off. Holiday time off. and more specifically, religious accommodations for holiday time off. It's against my religion to work on Christmas, really. So, if that is part of your written religious dogma, if it's written, in First Navidad, chapter 1, verse 3, and you can prove that, then at that point, that's where you would probably have a little bit more of a footing for a discussion about that. However, uh, federal law does not, as uh, as we're discussing, holiday leave does not have a federal law attached to it mandating it. So there's nothing saying in federal law, and that's across America, that your employer has to give you Christmas Day off or Christmas Eve off. However, in the state of California, we have the Fair Employment and Housing Act, which requires employers to reasonably accommodate employees' religious practices. And part of that religious practices can be for time off for religious observances. That could be part of that. And that should be a discussion that you and your employer should have. If it is part of your religious practice, then according to California state law, your employer is supposed to try to accommodate unless it creates an undue burden on the business operations of your employer. And so, what is undue burden? Well, that's going to look differently from employer to employer. What is reasonable accommodation? That's going to look different from position to position. However, what it could mean is that your employer tries to maybe switch your schedule, possibly to allow you to have a few hours during a religious observance celebration, and then you make up hours later in the day, possibly. That could be one. There's a lot of different variables with this, and of course, everybody's situation is different. So, what I would recommend is that if you would like your employer, if you are an employer, or if you're an employee and you would like your employer to provide you with some accommodation during the holiday season due to your religious beliefs, then I would recommend that you have a conversation with them now, basically, if it's at the end of the month or even before now, so that there's a clear understanding, so that it doesn't create an undue burden. And in reality, the earlier that you start these conversations, the more time that it gives employers to try to accommodate without the creation of an undue burden on the business. Also, the employer has a legal obligation to uh, attempt in a good faith effort to do everything that they can to accommodate you. And so this is the gray area. And so really what works best is when you really try to work with your employer and approach it from the perspective of, working together as opposed to the adversarial approach of demanding. I demand Christmas Day off because it's against my religion, and that's it. Work with your employer if at all possible, depending on what type of business it is, what type of industry it is. And then how can you work together? You really will be able to get a lot further a lot of times, unless, of course, you already have it written into your employment contract that you get Christmas off, or you get Hanukkah, the first day of Hanukkah off, or whatever the holiday is, the religious observance. So that's something else. So the next thing that I want to address when it comes to employees and uh, the holidays and requirements of employers, it comes around the topic of holiday parties and liability issues. So this one may apply a little bit more to the small business owner. So if you have a business and you are going to host a holiday party, regardless whether it's at a restaurant or at your business location or a bar or whatever you're going to do, if you are a small business owner, you need to be especially mindful of liability issues. If there's any kind of alcohol that's served, which many holiday parties do serve alcohol, keep in mind that your company bears some liability for occurrences that happen during these holiday parties. And so, with alcohol, many times, as we know, people act a little differently, and it can cause situations to come up that wouldn't have come up if, for example, the company chose to not serve alcohol or not pay for alcohol for the holiday party. And so just bear in mind, if you are a small business owner, that whatever happens at these holiday parties, there is an aspect of liability that can be placed upon you if you are the one who's sponsoring this party, because you ultimately bear the responsibility for uh, a lot of liability when it comes to workplace workplace safety, and this would be a part of it because you are sponsoring this event. And so just when you're planning these celebrations, uh, you know just factor that in as a small business owner. And then if you are the employee, you know cut some slack to your employer if they are deciding not to pay for drinks or something of that nature, because it could be that they have to be concerned with these other issues that, as a business owner, they have to be aware of everyone's safety. So keep that in mind. All right. And uh, what I would like to do right now is, we've got some really good questions that we're going to start to answer in just a few minutes, uh, that people have asked, and I want to address those. But before I start to do that, our law firm, Superheroes at Law, so appreciate each of you in the community, all around. You all have been so generous and so loving and so kind. And, we are a little bit different than a lot of law firms because we truly care about our community. We truly care about the people that we are helping. And for us, it's personal. And so, one of the ways that we wanted to show that this holiday season is to give back a Christmas gift to everyone who sees this and everyone in our communities who want the Christmas gift. And so, since we are a full service law firm and we deal with lots of different types of law, the thought was, what can we provide that can be of benefit to everybody or the most people? And so, uh, you know, offering certain legal services don't really apply to a lot of people. But one thing that can apply to everyone is everyone needs to have a will. And so for this Christmas, we are offering, as just from our hearts, a free, simple will for everyone who contacts us and says that they would like to take the free will. And again, that is, it's completely free, and it's from our firm. to you and your family, and it's available. And so keep that in mind, and you can even share this with other people, your family members as well. And we're happy to do that. And we're providing that as a service. And hello uh, to those who are saying hello in the different streams. It's so great to see you all. So, hello. All right. So, let's go ahead and get started with a few of our questions. And again, remember, if you have a question, you can always email us during the week, and then we will try our best to answer those questions while we're here during these legal hotline sessions every Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so it doesn't have to be about our theme, but it's always great if it is. And so we selected some questions that are about the theme. And then if we have time, we can delve into some other questions as they're coming in as well. So, first question that we have here is from Liz. Liz asked, how do California laws differentiate between recognized holidays for pay purposes? How do California laws differentiate between recognized holidays for pay purposes? So, great question. And this comes in a lot. And so that's why I started with a lot of talking about what the federal law is, and also leading into this question as well. So, California laws are very similar to the federal laws in this particular matter. There is, even though we have some different holidays in California that are recognized, than on the federal level, we still do not have official mandates for businesses to pay, and this is asking about pay purposes, to pay for employees to have certain days off. And so it's how California laws differentiate between recognized holidays. So in reality, there is no difference. There is no difference from California law to federal law, and from holiday to holiday or holiday to non-holiday. For pay purposes, there is no differentiation. It is not required unless, of course, again, that it's part of the employment contract, either the employment contract or a union contract. If it's not memorialized in a contract, then the business is not obligated to do so. It's great when they can, but there's no legal obligation. So great question, Liz. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Felicity asked, can you clarify the guidelines around providing holiday pay for part-time employees in California? Okay, so great question, Felicity. And again, you can see that this is a very, very popular topic. Everybody wants to know about holiday pay. So, so the question is in regards to part-time employees in California. So, Felicity, part-time employees have the same guidelines as full-time employees when it comes to the law, in that there is no law saying that either full-time or part-time employees must be paid holiday pay. However, this can actually be different based on the employment contract. Some employers will provide their full-time employees with holiday pay, and not their part-time employees, which is, a great incentive for people to want to go full-time with an employer. However, as far as for the law, there is no law at all that states part-time employees must be paid holiday pay, and there's no law that states full-time employees must be paid holiday pay, and this is in the state of California. So those are the guidelines. Okay, Sigmund asked, what steps should employers take to ensure compliance with holiday pay regulations when employees work irregular schedules? Okay, uh, great question. And it kind of piggybacks off of the last question. Uh, Part-time employee, full-time employee, employees with irregular schedules. There is nothing that says if you are the employer, if you're the business owner, you are not required by law to provide holiday pay to any of the employees, regardless, unless you agreed at the inception of the employment or in writing thereafter in like a union contract or something of that nature that you would provide that. So if you're the employer, if at any time you have ever promised holiday pay, then legally you're responsible to deliver on that promise. However, if you did not make that promise, you don't have that obligation as a legal necessity. However, I encourage employers always do the best you can to be a blessing to your employees. And so try to do what you can to help them and to be a blessing to them. But legally, you don't have that responsibility unless they agreed to that and you agreed to that when that position was started. Or if there was a later modification, for example, a union contract. That's very good. Let's go to our next question. Annie asked, are there specific requirements for notifying employees about their holiday pay rights in California? Very good. Good question, Annie. Are there specific requirements for notifying employees about their holiday pay rights in California? So there is nothing that specifically states you must tell an employee that you will not get paid holiday pay. If you have employees that are starting at your company, you don't have to put it into uh, the employment contract. You don't have to articulate you will not be getting any holiday pay for any of the holidays. However, I believe that disclosure is paramount and it helps everyone to have clear expectations, whether it's contracts about the sale and purchase of items or contracts for employment. Even though the law does not require any business to pay for holiday pay, I feel it's a good practice for employers, small business owners especially, to put it into their employment contract. What can be expected, what should not be expected. If you do not expect to regularly be providing holiday pay, then I feel it's a good practice to put it into the employment contract just so that it's clear, so that when the potential employee is reading it and preparing to sign it or not sign it, that it is very clear to them what to expect. Is there a specific requirement? No, it's not required to talk necessarily about holiday pay, but it's a good practice to be in. The more specific your employment contracts can be, the better, because it really it helps everyone to enter that contractual relationship of employment with mutual understanding of what this position is going to include: duties, responsibilities, pay, benefits, lack of benefits, whatever it is. It's just a good practice to be in. And so, to answer the question, there is no specific requirement about notifying employees about holiday pay. rights in the state of California? So great question, Annie. Let's move on to Veronica. Okay, so Veronica asked, how should employers handle holiday pay when an employee is on a fixed salary rather than hourly wages? And this question is really relevant because a lot of management positions, a lot of certain types of positions are fixed salary as opposed to hourly wage. And so sometimes there are differences when it comes to dealing with the employment status of uh, fixed salary versus hourly wage employees uh, in different issues, but this is not necessarily one. When it says here, how should employers handle holiday pay? So again, it all comes back to that agreement, that employment contract. And if that employment contract that also stipulates that the employee would be paid on a fixed salary, in that same contract, it should also delineate uh, what the holiday pay is going to be if there is holiday pay or if there's not going to be holiday pay. So employers don't have to handle it differently based on fixed salary versus hourly wages. Legally, again, in the state of California, it is not legally required to give any employee holiday pay at all. And a lot of positions don't have holiday pay. However, what really, really, really is important is that whatever was in your employment contract between the employee and the employer, that is what has to be followed. And so that is going to be the guideline for that position and that employee and that employer. That's the contract. And so there is no state of California or federal mandate on what that contract must look like in regards to the issue of holiday pay. There's nothing in the law that states that. Now, would that be wonderful? Well, about half of the population would say yes, and about half of the population would say no. So, but as the law is right now, and that's what I'm here to share with you, that is, there's nothing there uh, that requires that. And there is no differentiation between fixed salary or hourly wage employees on this topic. All right, so thank you, Veronica. Okay, Charlene. Charlene asked, in cases of disputes or discrepancies regarding holiday pay, what are the recommended steps for resolution under California law? I'll read it again. In cases of disputes or discrepancies regarding holiday pay, what are the recommended steps for resolution under California law? This is a great question. So, Charlene, I'm venturing to say that there has been a breakdown of communication between the employee and the employer somewhere. And so this happens a lot of times when there was no written employment contract prior to starting the position. A lot of times, and I see this a lot because a lot of small businesses, at the most, they'll have an application and then they'll do some interviews and then they'll say, "You're hired, start tomorrow or start on Monday." And the person shows up and they're just happy that they have a job, right? Well, that's until these kind of issues come up because a lot of the employers don't provide a written policy manual, and nor do they have an employment contract with employers or employees. And this happens a lot with small businesses, especially. And so If you are a small business owner, I'm telling you now, you need to create an employment contract for your employees for when they start. You need to create an a, a position manual and policy procedure book. And if you do not have the time to do that, or if you need help on how to do that, I would recommend you get in contact with legal help, an attorney who can help you with that. Because usually, for not a lot, uh, your business can be protected from challenges like this. Because, for example, if you're a small business owner, you have you do not have a policy manual in place. You are putting yourself in uh, in harm's way. And I'm just going to be frank. As a small business owner, you are opening yourself up to lawsuits about, like, this question. Could I get that question to come back up again? Because I want to make sure that I answer it 100%. Thank you. Uh, uh, Disputes and discrepancies. The reason for policy manuals, procedure manuals, employment contracts are to help minimize discrepancies. Where there are discrepancies, there is room for disputes. And one dispute can cost you thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars just because you did not memorialize what you wanted or what the expectations were going to be ahead of time. And so you really want to uh, contact an attorney who can help with that. We've helped other small businesses to do that. It's not super expensive, but whether it was us or another attorney, invest in your business to do something like that so that these discrepancies don't come up. People know ahead of time. So, Charlene, you're asking if there is a dispute that comes up about this, or a discrepancy regarding holiday pay, what are the recommended steps for resolution? Okay, so first thing I would recommend for you, Charlene, is consult your employment contract. That's the first step. Okay, look at the employment contract that you signed, hopefully, if you signed one, and see what it says there about holiday pay. Charlene, if you don't see anything that says in your employment contract that holiday pay was going to be provided for these specific holidays, then do not expect that you should be receiving any holiday pay. If the contract is vague and ambiguous, for example, it might say for certain holidays you will receive holiday pay. First of all, whoever wrote that contract should be fired. But and unless it's the boss of the business, but okay, that's opening up the door for discrepancies, and that's not good. So here's what I would recommend. After, Charlene, after you've checked your employment contract, secondly, you've checked your procedural manual and employee manual, and if there is neither of those, or one of those is missing, and there is a lack of this topic being addressed, then the next thing I would recommend to you, Charlene, really is try to talk to your employer about it. You could say, hey, I thought I was going to get Christmas pay. What's going on here? I'm not getting Christmas pay? No holiday pay? As hard as I'm working 12-hour shifts. I'm breaking my back. My feet are hurting every day when I come home from work. My kids are asleep by the time I get out of work. And you're not going to pay me for Christmas? What in the world is this, right? I get it. You work hard, and you would expect to be rewarded for your hard work. But again, remember, employment is a contract. So if you agreed to work and there was no discussion of holiday pay, unfortunately, you can't force them to pay you for the holidays. What you can do in order to resolve this, though, is go to your employer and have a heart to heart and say, you know what, Mr. Employer, I work really, really hard for you. I love your business. I love your customers. I want to do a great job. I'm always doing everything I can. I understand that, you're saying I shouldn't get any kind of holiday pay. Is there a possibility that you'll be giving bonuses maybe? And always be respectful when you're talking to your employers, because, they're people too. And most of the time they're just trying to make things work uh, to support you as well as their business. And so, ask one to one. If that is unproductive, then I would recommend take the next step, get an arbitrator involved, a mediator. There's mediation services that you can Google to get help. Someone who is non biased, who can sit down with the two of you and discuss it. And as a last resort, then I would take these next steps. So, say, for example, you guys have attempted to mediate between you and your employer. It's not happening. Well, you can file complaints, with the state. But in reality, when you file those complaints, they're going to go back to ask, okay, well, my recommendation to you in order to mediate and to fix this problem is to really have a heart to heart with the employer. That's really important. And then if it's that meaningful to you, start to look for a different job. If they won't pay you for holidays, then start to look for a different job. There are jobs out there that will, but communication is so important. And so talk to your employer after you've checked your employment contract and the policy and procedure manual. And if there's nothing there, talk to the employer. Next step, arbitration mediation. You can always get the state involved, but they're going to go back to that. And that's what I would recommend. So hopefully that helps. All right. Do we have uh, another question that was uh, pre-written, uh, or someone wrote into us about this topic, or are the other questions about other topics? Do we have anyone else? Also, real quick, if you have a quick question about this topic, you can drop it into the chat of whichever streaming service that you are watching. And so while I'm just waiting another quick minute, so just in case there's anyone else who has a question about this topic. So remember, when it comes to the holiday season and employee rights and employment rights, first of all, thank you. Thank you to everyone who works so hard, our retail workers, our shipping workers, customer service, everyone, and I'm if I don't mention your industry, please don't hold it against me. But I just want you to know that you are appreciated. All of our frontline workers, we couldn't survive without you. And so that's why I want to encourage you, always be aware of your rights. Do not just say, oh, well, I'll just put up with it and hang your head and hate your life and hate your work. Speak up for yourself with respect when there are issues. But at the same time, when you are looking for new jobs or looking for a job, always ask the employer, is there an employment contract by any chance? Or is there a policy manual in writing? Just start to ask. Most of us don't do that. And that will help to frame these topics early on so that you don't have to be 6 months or a year into your job and then hating what's going on and feeling like you're mistreated because you didn't get holiday pay or something else. Okay. But first of all, thank you to those of you who work so hard. So I don't see any other questions being dropped in right this moment. Thank you for every question that was submitted during the week. And I want to encourage you, if you have a question that you would like to ask or be addressed, right below, you'll see an email address here, info@superheroes@law.com, info@superheroes.law.com. Send us an email so that we can try to address your question on air. And also join us every Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and tell your friends about this as well. Where else do you get legal questions answered or learn about how the law applies to you in your life on a podcast like this? So we just want to do this as a service to you and the community to let you know that we're here to support you and to let you know that the law is there to support you as well. And you just need to know what your legal rights are. So for today, that's all. I'm going to sign off for today, but just know that at Superheroes at Law, myself and our team, we appreciate you. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here for you. And just know that we appreciate you. And the sign came up. Thank you for your time. So take care, and we'll see you next Saturday on the Superheroes Legal Hotline. See you.